Good morning and welcome to my classroom. My name is Justine Froelich and this is the 15 minutes teacher observation. This unit that I'm going to be demonstrating for you is a full figure drawing unit. This would come after a portrait unit with the attention to the skull that they would then move on to the full body. So just to orient you to the room, we have a light box. These are collaborative drawing tables for the students, and then we always have a still life in the middle. Up here, I'll bring you closer, we have our warm-ups, and we have visual thinking, as well as our word bank, which is all the vocabulary that we go through. We have our assignment here that's posted, and then previously, the day before, we talked about all of these paintings and what they have in common. Good morning, artists. It's so great to have you back today. Today we're going to be moving on with our figure lesson. And just to review, we talked about these vocabulary words yesterday, which are up on the word bank: figure, proportion, anatomy, and gesture. Would anybody like to give their own quick definition with using your own words for either one of these vocabulary? Then the student would raise their hand and we would move on from here. Then we would go into visual thinking strategies, which come in different ways, but the one that I'm going to have them do for today is I see, I feel, I wonder, using these 4 prints by Bernhard Siegfried Albinus. So if I could have 3 students who would like to volunteer to just complete the sentence, come up, complete the sentence. You can use the expo marker up on the board with what you see, what you feel, and what you wonder, using these 4 prints from Albinus. Something that they could add is, I see 4 of the same gesture. They could use their vocabulary words. They could say, I feel that the figure is in a space that's outdoors, which might be strange. And then I wonder why the anatomy increases with each one as it moves from the left to the right. So then we would have a discussion about what each student wrote. They would share out what they wrote, and we would have a discussion about this. Something that we could talk about is why they see, or why they feel that way, or why they wonder, and they can explain using critical thinking and their full ideas. So after we talk about this, we would then move on to what are the similarities and the differences that you see in the Albinus sketches. That's what they would come up for here, similarities and differences. And they would look at this painting by Michelangelo, painted on the Sistine Chapel. So maybe I could ask them, hey students, have you ever seen this painting before? If so, maybe someone could share where they've seen it and what they know about this. Maybe they know it's from the Renaissance. Maybe they know that it was done on the ceiling of the chapel. And so they would come up here and we would have 2 students. Maybe one student can do similarities, one student can do differences, but they come up to the board, they can collaborate together, as well as look at the example that was shown first, and then take a look at the second one. And what they might notice is the actual gesture is the same. So if we go back, we see that the arm is extended. We have this very elegant reaching out that happens both. They might say that they see comparisons between the gesture. They might say that they see differences in the actual painting. This one has color. It has skin. It has clothes. This one is just very strictly anatomical, from skeleton all the way to muscle. So this similar pose might be found with Adam as he's reaching out. So the reason why I like my students to think about different artists before they get into their actual creation and artwork is so that they have some inspiration and historical context. So Bernhard Siegfried Albinus is a Dutch physician and anatomist, and he's what we would call a historical artist. He's someone who's from the past, who we're learning about. And we're actually going to look at his Tabulae Skeleti et Musculorum Corpus Humani, done in 1747, which was a book that he worked with an artist on, which created this tablet, tabulae, of the skeleton, musculorum, of the muscles on the human body. And these are engraved plates. And actually, we are going to do a little popcorn reading of the NIH government site. And this is his full book. We can look at this here, which was on the previous slides, but we're gonna do a little popcorn reading on his actual life and his career and how he was very beneficial to both the medicine and the science community, as well as to the artistic community. And after we would do a little popcorn reading, which is where one student chooses another student to continue reading, we would talk about how art can also be a career that collaborates with even modern medicine. And we could even see how NIH uses this website for their historical anatomies collection. So after that discussion, if there are any questions, of course, I would take them. And then we're moving on to why do we even care? And this is going to be our jump into the lesson, which is we need to be able to understand the figure as it is from its very basic bones of the skeleton, then slightly adding on muscle, tendons, and then tissue. And we need to understand the figure with this kind of X-ray vision, first with the skeleton. We are going to be learning a strategy and a structure of drawing that is from Juno Park. And he is a contemporary artist, which means he's living and breathing today. And we are going to see how he does the skeleton in the round. So from the frontal position, the 3/4 position, the profile position, and the 3/4 rear. And we can see just from his sketches that even his nude figure, he's still thinking about the skeleton. But when he's taking a look at a figure that has bulky clothes, it's cold New York, he still needs to have that understanding of where's the rib cage, where's the shoulder, connected to the elbow, to the forearm, to the wrist and the hand. So we are going to go to our workbooks, and all the students have these packets that I print them, but these are just notes that they take. It has vocabulary words, things like that for them to look at. But we are going to be looking at page 25. And students just flip your folder sideways so that you can follow along. But we are going to be taking a look lifetime at our skeleton, as well as how do we draw him in the round, meaning from the front to the side, 3/4 to the side profile, and then to the back. So ideally, you would have the same size of your head that comes down 7 times. And this is what the average height of a human is. From there, we're going to start building our skeleton. So, in obviously box 1, we're going to look at our skull. We always work from the top down. And our skull, then our rib cage, and then our pelvis are going to be the 3 major landmarks that we look at. So for the front, we've already looked at the skull in detail last unit, but we're going to do the round part for the actual volume of the skull, and then we're going to connect it to our jaw. I'm just going to also erase these little heads on the side so we have enough room to get the full figure in. Okay. And there we go. Very basic. From there, we're going to draw our spinal line that starts in our head. It is connected to our brain and ends right about the pelvis. And you might be wondering what this dashed line is. This is where you can mark your pelvis line. So our spine goes all the way down to here. From the next thing, we're going to think about our clavicles. These are the 2 bones that go across, and they connect our shoulders with our arms. Straight lines that come across. And we are going to be thinking about every joint, meaning shoulders, anything that rotates, our elbows, our wrists, our knees, our hips, as spheres, as shapes. So for our shoulders, we're going to add them in like this. From there, we're going to think about the actual shape of the rib cage as more of an egg shape. So it comes down all the way from halfway through box 2, almost down to box 3. From there, we're going to do our upper arm to our elbow to our forearm. Just lines, and then again at joints, we make circles. Your elbow should be coming at the bottom of box 3. If you notice, they are just slightly below the rib cage. And we are going to extend it all the way down. Our hands go almost halfway through your thigh. So we want to make sure that this is long enough, coming all the way down from box 4. Okay, now we're ready for our pelvis. In our pelvis, we're going to represent the box that's tilted forward. Our rib cage is opened up, and our pelvis is actually something that tilts forward. So we're just going to put this box, pelvic box, right here. And the pelvic box sits right underneath the spine, which is right here. From there, we're going to attach our hips, which are right here and here. This guy keeps popping out. No. Okay. Another thing that students might ask is about these orange little bits here. These are actually tendons that hold together our joints and our bones to our hips, our clavicles, and to each other. And then on the right side, these are all just marked here with numbers because the anatomy class is able to identify the actual names of all the bone structures. So from there, we're going to add in our hips at the bottom of box 4, which are going to be 2 circles. They're sockets. We're able to rotate our hips, just like we're able to rotate our shoulders. And the femur, which is our largest bone that comes down right here, is connected to our knee. The knee will come, oops, I thought that was movable. The knee will come just underneath box 5. Then we have our shin. And then we're just gonna put a triangle for now as the feet. Which they do kind of have a triangular shape, like this. Okay, so this is the skeleton from the front. Now we're going to look at it from 3/4 from the front. So just if we were looking at it like this, we're just slightly going to rotate it a little bit. So we see a little bit of the profile and more of the volume of the rib cage and the pelvis. So again, we're going to start with our skull, which is going to come forward, and our jaw like this. I usually intersect the face so that they understand where the eyes and the nose are. We are going to have a slight curve in our spine, which when we go to our profile is going to be more apparent. But for now, it's just going to curve slightly. And again, it's going to stop around that dashed line. Since we're looking more of our figure from the side, we're going to see more of this right shoulder. So again, clavicles connected to the shoulders. And we have a little bit of more volume for our rib cage that comes to about the bottom of our box 3. And again, this is where students would be following along as I'm walking them through these steps inside of their own folders. From there, we're going to see the slight forward tilt of our box for our pelvis. And we're going to attach the hips mostly only seeing one, more in the front, our femur, to our knee, to our foot. Again, to our knee, from our shin to our foot. What we do on one side, we do to the other, because we are symmetrical from one side to the other. We're gonna add in our arms. Again, making sure that our hands go to about mid-thigh. And there is our 3/4 position of our skeleton. I'm just going to move him over here. At this point, I would ask the students if they have any questions. They want me to redo any of the drawings more slowly and to walk them through that in any manner. Profile, again, we're looking at our skeleton from the very side, and we're actually going to notice this curve in the spine. From the 6th vertebrae, we have a little curve out, then our back sways back in, curving in, and then it comes back out and then back in again by the tailbone. And some students are surprised, they're like, what, miss, we have a tail? Yes, we do, and it curves right inside our pelvis. So, a profile skull, which would be something that we have already learned about, has our jawline in the middle. We then have our spine, like I said, that curves out a little bit. It then comes all the way in, then back out, then back in for our tailbone. And we are going to be looking at this volume, he's going to stand up a little bit straight for us, of the rib cage. And if we notice, our rib cage points up and our pelvis points down. So this is something that I really emphasize with my students, is I always say the rib cage points up, meaning it comes this way out, and then our box for our pelvis points this way down. From there, we're going to add in just one side of our joints to the hand, hip, to the femur, to the knee, to the shin, to the foot. And then we have our side profile. And the last position that we're going to look at is the 3/4 from the back. And the reason why we don't do full back is because we will already understand the volume from the back from 3/4. So one thing to note is that we see more of the volume of the skull from the back and less of the features from the face. So it's important that students understand that this is now, this part right here, this circle, is where our spine goes into our head, it connects to our brain. And we've already looked at the skull, but they know that this hole that's in the back of our spine, in the back of our skull, is where our spine connects. So this hole right here is going to be a landmark for us. We're also just going to slightly curve it, not as dramatic as this one, so that we can see the curve of the spine. And because we're now looking at the back, we are able to identify this shape, which is triangular, and this is going to be our shoulder blade. So our clavicles are attached to our shoulder blades. And then right inside of this, just at the tip of the triangle, is going to be our shoulders. We have the back of the rib cage. We have our pelvis box, which is still tilted forward. So we're going to make this more apparent here as it's tilted forward. And then, of course, we have our arms, upper arm to elbow, forearm to hand, forearm to hand, and then our hips come in as circles. Thigh to knee, femur, and then our shin to our feet. If students are quicker than others, what I would challenge them to do is, in a different color, go to the profile position and think about the actual skin and tissue that would be around the skeleton. So for example, maybe they sketch out a nose and a profile. Maybe they sketch out some hair, they sketch out the neck and the body around it, the back, the actual muscles of the thigh, and the calf to their foot, and then of course their shoulders come out. This one we kind of drew exaggerated, and their hands. And this could be a good activity for those students who, again, are a little bit faster. So at this point, I would just be walking around, double checking everybody's proportions, that they have the boxes correctly in the correct position, and then we would take a little break if nobody else had questions. Again, this would be through a block period, which would be about 90 minutes. So at this point, just to get students a little bit re-energized, we would come back to our demo.